Hi and welcome to the On Maths GCSE prediction for the Edexcel Foundation Legacy, which is the RESIT paper. This is filmed after paper 1. Hi, I'm Chris Gilpin and I hope you did alright on paper 1. Obviously you guys are going to be in year 12 or year 13 or maybe even older than that, and you're retaking the paper either to improve your grade or to try and get a grade C. So what I've done for this video is done the prediction on the onmaths.com website. If you go to the website you can do this paper online absolutely for free, and it will change the numbers so that you're remembering methods and not answers. So you can try it once or you can try it 10 times. I've had some students try them hundreds of times, which is absolutely fine. If you sign up for free as well, then it will save your scores so you can come back to it again and again and again, see if your grade has improved. Now, I will be using grade boundaries. They're very similar to previous years, and I've generated them from the similarity of previous years. So unlike the year 11s doing their paper at the moment, the grade boundaries probably are more or less accurate to what they will be when you open your envelopes in August. The way this works is I just go through the paper. This paper is for the paper 2, which is obviously the only other paper. Unlike the year 11s, you only have 2 papers. So it's out of 100 marks, and yeah, let's get started. You will need to be familiar with the names of three-dimensional shapes. So the one we have here is a triangular based prism. So a prism is a shape that you can cut anywhere along one of the axes, so anywhere along here, and it would look exactly the same. It would look like a triangle. The first bit of this, triangular based, is just the name of the shape at the end, the name of the shape at the end of the prism. So you can have a hexagonal based prism or anything like that. It says write down the number of faces. So the faces we can see, well, the face we can see here is a triangle, so that's 1. Then we've got 1 along here, which is a rectangle. So we've got 2 that we can see, but there is also going to be a third one round here, which is also going to be a rectangle, a fourth one at the bottom, which is going to be a rectangle, and then a 5th one round the back, which is going to be a triangle, just like number 1. So in total there are 5 faces. Try and remember what a face is. A face is something you can lay your hand down flat on. An edge is something that you can run your finger along, so that's an edge there. And vertices, or vertex, is something that if you put your finger on, it would be pointy. So there are going to be 6 vertices. When we're asked to write a number in figures, it just means as numbers. So we've got 5,026. We need a 0 there as a placeholder. So you're just going to write 5026, 5,026. Next question says, write down the value of 8. Now, if we remember, and let's just write the number a little bit bigger. This is our units column. This is our tenths column. And this is our hundredths column. So the value of the 8 is 8 hundredths. We can write that as a fraction, 8 hundredths. And that's the answer. Question C, write down 655 correct to the nearest 10. Okay, so 655, if we just do a quick number line, 655, the next 10 up is 660. And the next one down is 650. So those are the 2 it can round to. This 655 is bang on halfway, and if they are halfway, they round upwards. So the answer is 660. If I draw that properly. If it was any less, if it was 654, it would round down. So if the last number, if that number there is 5 or more, it will round up. For this question we need to understand the difference between multiples and factors. Multiples are just a numbers times table. So the multiples of 5 will be 5, 10, 15, 20, etc, etc. Now every number in the 5 times table ends in 0 or 5. So looking at the list of numbers we've got here, there's only one that ends in a 5 or a 0, which is 10. So 10 is a multiple of 5. Now factors go the other way. A factor of a number means that the number, so 24, is in another numbers times table. So 24, and the easiest way to find the factors of 24 is you start off with 1 and 24, because 1 times 24 is 24. Then you go 2 times, well, 12, 3 times 8, 4 times, and you think how many 4s? 6. 5 times, well, that doesn't work. 6 times we've already got. So those 8 numbers are the factors of 24. Then I look at the list, well, already there's a 24 there. Is there any other ones I could have written? I don't see any other ones, so 24 is my answer there. 2 prime numbers. Now prime numbers mean they only have 2 factors, 1 and themselves. Okay, that's a prime number. If there's any more factors, it's not a prime number. So let's go through the list. 10 is in the 5 times table, which we identified in question A, so that's not a prime number. 24, well, we've listed out 6 other factors of 24, so that's not in it. 18 is 3 times 6, so that's not going to be it. 17, I don't think of any times tables that 17 is in, so I'm going to say 17 is a prime number, which it is. And 19, well, I can't think of any times tables 19 is in, so I think that's a prime number. Let's go through the rest to make sure. So 16 is 2 and 8, so that's not a prime number. And any even number apart from 2 is not going to be a prime number. 2 is the only even prime number. 27 looks like it might be, but actually 3 times 9 is 27, so it's definitely not. And 28 is another even number. So it looks like we found the 2 prime numbers. On this scale on the side of the jug, we're not given the little tiny notches. So the word estimate means that we're not going to get it exactly right maybe, but we're roughly going to be correct. Now there are wrong answers to this. So if I wrote the answer 22, which would be down here somewhere, that's clearly wrong because we know that the water is above 30. We know the water's between 30 and 40. And if you have a look, it's less than halfway. So we're expecting a number that's below 35. I think if you wrote the number 35, you would get that wrong because it's clearly less than halfway. I think the numbers, probably to get it right, you might get away with 34, but definitely 33 or 32. I think, personally, it's closer to 33, but some of you might look at that and think it's closer to 32, and chances are we'll both get the marks. The easiest way to order decimals is just to put yourself a few columns down the page, and hopefully I'm going to try and get enough columns. I always end up with not enough, so if I put some extra ones in, that should suffice. And just literally put the numbers in, so 14.828, and make sure the decimal points are lined up, so 8.60 is going to be like this, and I'm going to put an extra 0 in to make them all the same length. It doesn't change the number at all. So 14.86, I'm going to put 0 in there. 14.820, and then 14.7. Now we're starting with the smallest, so I'm looking for the smallest one first. Well, the smallest one's leaping out because if I just look at this column, there's only one number that has a 0 there, all the rest of them have 1. So the 8.60, and I have to put the 0 because that's how it said in the question, is definitely the smallest. So we can cross that out. That's definitely the smallest. All the other ones are tied. They're all 1 in that column. So we move over to the left, the next column, sorry, the next one to the right. So 4, 4, 4, 4, they're all tied. So I keep moving along. Okay, there's a clear loser in this one. There's a clear one that's the smallest in this one. The bottom one, 14.7. So that's definitely the next smallest. So I can cross that one out. All the other three have tied because they're all 8. So I move on to the next column. Now, looking at this, there's 2 2s and a 6. Now that 6 is definitely the biggest number. So I could fill that in as the biggest number. And we've just got to work out what the smaller of these remaining 2 are. Well, let's move on a column. And you can see here that 14.82 is the smallest or smaller of the 2. And so that leaves the 14.828 in that position. Now always just double check the 5 numbers you've listed are the same as in the question. That's the same. 18.60, that's the same. 14.86, that's the same. 14.82 is the same, and 14.7 is the same. You sometimes lose a mark if you haven't written exactly the same number. Same goes for when there's fractions and decimals. You've got to write down the number that it showed in the question. Okay, so this question is basically asking you to find 9% of 16,750. Now, because it's on the calculator paper, there's a much easier way to do it using the calculator. Without a calculator, you'd work out 1% and then you times that by 9, or work out 5% and 4% and add them together. But with a calculator, you just need to know that percent means per 100. So 9% is the same as 9 over 100. Of just means times. And so all we need to do in the calculator is do 9 over 100, so fraction button, 9 over 100, times 16,750. And that gives us the answer of 1,507.5. So in money, that is £1,507.50. So the first thing to look at in this question is how many sides has the spinner got. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 equally sized, equally spaced out sides of that spinner. So any one of those colours is going to be a quarter chance. So let's have a look. What letter on the probability line represents a probability the spinner will land on a yellow? So there is 1 yellow on that spinner, and so therefore it's going to be a quarter chance. So if you have a look at how many notches this number line has, well, we don't count the first one, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 notches. So each one of those notches is going to be a quarter. So 1 quarter will be at B. Which letter represents probability of landing on a red? So we have 2 reds there, so that's going to be 2 quarters. So we've got 1 quarter and 2 quarters would be at C. Now 2 quarters is the same as a half, which is what the 0.5 there is. It's just a half. What letter on the probability line represents the probability it will land on a blue? Well, there aren't any blues on there. So however many times you spin it, it will never land on a blue. And in probability, we mark that with a 0. So it's going to be A. Alright, so the first place to start on this is to plot the points. So point A is at -3, -2. So along the corridor and up the stairs, well, we're going across -3 on the x-axis, which is this one here. And then we're going to go down 2 on the y-axis. So it's this one here. A really common mistake is to muddle them up. So as long as you remember you're going across and then up or down, obviously if it's negative you go down, then you should be fine. Now it says point A, so I probably should label that as A. And point B is 0, 3. It means we're not going left or right at all. We're just going to stay at 0, but we could go up 3. So it's going to be there. And point C is at 3, -2. So along 3, down 2. It's going to be that one there. So that's point C. And it says plot and join these coordinates. So I'm just going to get my ruler and plot and join them. Well, we've plotted them, so we're just going to join them. And there we go. Makes a nice little shape there. Now, question B says, what type of triangle is ABC? So, looking at it, it looks like this length here and this length here are exactly the same length. So, when we've got a triangle with two sides the same length, it's an isosceles triangle. And try and learn the spelling of isosceles, because it does look better when you spell it right. I remember it's ISOSCELES. The SOS is like a Morse code thing to get help, save our souls. So I've always remembered SOS, as in, oh my goodness, I don't know how to spell isosceles. So we're given a basic formula to work out how long this turkey is going to take to cook. It says that the cooking time, so we can just call that time, is the weight, which it says is a 3 kilogram turkey, and just check that the units are the same, which they are. So it's the 3 times 30, then add 90. 3 times 30 is 90, and 90 plus 90 is 180. Now just double check that it wants it in minutes. Sometimes it'll ask for it in hours. Well, it says it wants it in minutes, so 180. So we're given function machines for this question, and it says what is the output when the input's 24? So the input's 24, and the first thing that's going to happen to it is it's going to divide by 2, so we're going to halve it. So that's going to make it 12. Then it says we're going to add 6. So when we add 6 to 12, we get 18. So the output is 18. Next question says below is a different number machine. It says when the input is 20, the output is 56. So let's follow through on the input. So the input's 20, we go take away 6, so that's going to give us 14. Now we've got to then think, right, how do I get from 14 to 56? Now, as it stands, there are multiple ways of doing this. If you do this on onmaths.com, it has a drop-down box and it only lets you select one of the options. So you can add a number to 14 to get to 56, and for this question that would be full marks, that would be absolutely fine. Or you can times it by 4, and times by 4 is the one I'm going to go for. So I'm going to complete the number machine by saying times 4. And the place I'd start with this question, since we're going to be asked for the median anyway, is just to put these in order of sides, and that will help us work out the mode and range. You don't have to do it, it's much easier to spot. So the smallest number's 38. Is there another 38? No, the next number's 39. I think there's a few 39s. Okay, the next number's 41. I'm crossing them out as I go so I don't count them twice accidentally. So 42, 43, 44. Now the mode means most. Okay, if you just remember that, mode most, it's pretty much the same word. So what came up the most? Well, if you have a look, there are 3 39s there, and there's 2 42s, 2 41s. So 39 came up the most. And it's much easier to spot when they're all lined up. The range is the biggest, take away smallest. And again, this is a lot easier when they're all lined up. So it's 44, which is the biggest, take away the smallest, which is 38. Now, I know that you can do this in your head, but use your calculator anyway. Why not? Because this is a calculator question, but we know the answer is going to be 6. Okay, so the median. Now the median is the one that you've got to find the middle one, so it's the middle when in order. And I put that in capitals because most people forget that one who get this question wrong. You have to put them in order of size first, okay? And what you do is you cross out one from both sides, then another one from both sides, then another one from both sides, then another, until you're left with 1 or 2 in the middle. Now if you're left with 2 in the middle, then you add them together and halve it. Or find the number that's halfway between the two. Now if they're both 41, the median will be 41. If you think about it, 41 times 2 is 82, and then halve it, it's going to be 41. Now the mean is, a lot of people call it the mean one. You add them all together and divide it by how many? So I'm going to do this on my calculator. I'm going to do 38 plus 39 plus 39 plus 39 plus 41 plus 41 plus 42 plus 42 plus 43 plus 44. Hopefully I've got the right answer of 408. Over how many there are? Well, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I need to divide that by 10, and I get 40.8 for the mean. Now, I would always double check that, so I'm going to do it again on my calculator, because when you're typing a whole load of numbers, it's always easy to make a mistake, but it's very rare to make the same mistake twice, and it's come up with 408 again, so I know it's probably right. With any sequence, the first thing to check is whether it goes up by the same amount. Well, looking at this goes up by 1, this goes up by 3, so it's not going up by the same amount. This goes up by 4, this goes up by 7. But something you might notice is this goes up by 7, and yet there's a 7 here. This one goes up by 4, and there's a 4 here. This goes up by 3, and there's a 3 here. This is what we call the Fibonacci sequence. So the Fibonacci sequence just starts off with 2 numbers, and then we add the previous 2 terms to get to the next term. So we'll add these 2 together to get to the next one. Then we add these 2 together to get to the next one. So to find the next one, we need to add the 11 and the 18 together. 18 plus 11 is going to be 29. So the next term is going to be the 29th term. Let's just check that's the 6th term. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yes, that would be the 6th term, would be 29. Then we need to add the 18 and the 29 together. And when the numbers get big, if it's not on the calculator paper, you can just add them like this. So 9 plus 8 is 17, and that's going to be 3 plus 1, which is 4. So it's going to be 47. So the 7th term is going to be 47. So always just check that the sequence isn't a Fibonacci sequence before you start to panic and think, what is this sequence? Always check for a Fibonacci sequence. It was just that the previous 2 terms are added together to make the next term. So for the first question, when you're adding letters together, the answer will be a number and then that letter. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's going to be 5b. The most common wrong answer is b to the power of 5. Now that's wrong because that only happens when you times them together, when you multiply them together. So it's going to be 5b for the first one. Next one is 10 lots of f, and we're taking away 3 lots of the f. Well, how many f have we got left over? Well, 10 lots of it and take away 3 lots of it means we've got 7 lots of it left. When you're simplifying one like this, in algebra we just don't use the time sign, so this is quite a nice easy question, 10ab. Now the last one is like terms, so we've got 5x here, and we're adding 5x. And we've got a 3y here, and we're taking away a y. So when you add the 5x to the 5x, you get 10x. And when you've got 3y and you're taking away y, which is short for 1y, so we've got 3 y's, taking away 1y, we're left with 2y. Now you can't simplify that any further because they are not like terms. You can times them, but you can't add or subtract them. With stem and leaves, the tens, and sometimes the units, but mainly the tens, are in this column, and then the units go in this bit here. So First of all, I'm going to pick the smallest number, and it's easier to do this by doing it smallest to biggest, because the units here must be in order of size. Now the order goes, the smallest go on the left hand side and the biggest on the right hand side. However, if you're doing a stem leaf over here, the biggest go on the right hand side, sorry, the smallest go on the right hand side and the biggest go on the left hand side. Basically the smallest must be as close to the middle and the biggest must be away from the middle. Okay, so the smallest one we've got is 30, so we're going to do 30 first. Now we've got the 3 already, so we're just going to put a 0 there, and that represents 30. Then the next smallest I think is 33, so the 3 goes there. I think the next smallest is 39, so the 9 goes there. Okay, and that's the 30s done, so let's move on to 40s. 41 goes there, 43 goes there, 44, 48. And the last few, so 52 and 52, well they're the same, so they can be next to each other, and 64. So the smallest go on the left, and then you get bigger as you go to the right, and that's really important because you need to do that to get the right marks, or to get the correct answer. Okay, the last thing to do is the key. Now the key is just pick a value, any value. I always pick the one at the top left, but it can be any value. It doesn't even have to be a value on there. And you do 3 line 0, which I've just copied the bit I've done in the yellow, means 30. Now you might ask, why do we need that? Because it's always going to be 30. Well, not quite, because you can get ones that are 4 line 1 means 4.1, which is why these ones here aren't always going to be tens. Sometimes those will be units and you'll be writing down the decimals, so just look out for that. Now you need to have, first of all the numbers in the stem and leaf, secondly them in order, and thirdly the key. That's what the mark scheme is going to say. Make sure that you know the names of the parts of the circles. So a diameter is a line that just goes across a circle going through the centre. If it doesn't go through the centre but it goes across the circle, it's a chord. A bit of a circumference, well, circumference is the whole way around the circle, a bit of a circumference is called an arc, and there's a few more parts of a circle you need to know. Now on this question there's a line which touches the circle just at one point and it's a straight line. The name for that is tangent. At first glance this seems like a really easy question. It seems like the answer will just be 80. But we've got to understand the way that bearings are written out. It says work out the bearing of A from B. It means that we are at B and we're trying to find where A is in relation to B. So the actual question is asking you for this angle here. Now don't forget, bearings are the angle going clockwise from north. So not so easy. The first step of doing this, and there are different ways of doing this, is just draw a line. In fact, I'm going to use my straight line one. Just draw a line straight down at B. If I can get it right, there we go. Now, north lines are always going to be parallel, and we can use that to work out this angle here. This angle here will be the same as this angle here because they're Z angles or alternate angles. So that's also going to be 80. We know this one is a straight line, so we know this is going to be 180 degrees. So all we need to do to work out the bearing is do 180 plus 80. And when you add them together, you get 260. So the bearing is going to be 260. Now there are other ways of doing it. You could have worked out this angle, because this angle and the 80 degrees over here are co-interior, interior, or allied angles, whichever one you want to call them. So they will add up to 180. So we know that one's going to be 100. And then what we could have done is 360 take away 100, because it's the full circle is going to be 360, and we don't want the 100 one. You'd also get 260. When solving, always just write out the question and put down lines either side of the equals. And what we're looking at doing is doing something to both sides so that we get x on its own. So we want to end up with x equals at the bottom. That's when we know we've solved it. So looking at the left hand side, we need to get rid of this 6 here and the takeaway 6 there. Now we must remove the plus or the minus first, as long as it's not trapped in a bracket or a fraction. So we're going to get rid of the minus 6. To do that, we need to do the opposite of it. So we need to add 6 to both sides. So we're going to end up with 6x on the left hand side, because we've got rid of the minus 6. And we're going to add 6 to that to make 60. Now we want to get rid of the 6 before the x. Now that's a times 6. When you put a number next to a letter, it's a times. So to get rid of it, we need to divide 6. So we're going to end up with x on the left hand side, and 60 divided by 6 is 10. So the answer is x equals 10. Didn't need that much room in the end, and that's it. To answer this question, first of all, we need to know what the gradient is. So what you do is you pick 2 points that you know the coordinates of, which is that one and that one I'm going to pick. Works with any of them. And we work out how much up and how much across it's gone. Well, it's gone 1 up, but I'm going to do this in pence. So I'm going to say it's gone 100 pence up, and it's gone 10 miles across. So to work out the gradient, we're going to do the change in y, so how much it's gone up, over how much it's gone across. Now, some students have that the wrong way around because coordinates work the other way around. You go along the corridor and up the stairs. With gradients, how far you go up or down over how much you've gone right. So that's going to be 10. Now, it says give an interpretation, so we haven't finished answering the question. What does that mean? Well, it means for every 1 mile that we've gone, it's going to cost 10 pence. Now remember, I converted this into pence, so instead of in pounds, it's going to be pence. So the gradient is the cost per mile. And I'm going to put in brackets 10p. Now, it could be that just writing the cost per mile for this question would give you the mark. But if you actually wrote the gradient as well, then you definitely get the mark. And sometimes it will ask you for the gradient and then ask you to interpret it. Question A seems like a really complicated question, but it really isn't. If you think about what you know about a rectangle, you know that opposite sides of a rectangle are equal. So if you just write down x plus 1 is the same as 12, and then solve it. So what we're going to do is we're going to take away 1 both sides. Then x equals 11. So we know that x is 11. Let's check that out. It says here x minus 1. Well, what is 11 take away 1? Well, it's 10. And that is the same as that. So we know that x equals 11. And that's it. Question B. Have a think about what you know. You know that all angles in a triangle add up to 180. So we know that if we add y, 2y, and 3y together, it's going to equal 180 degrees. So again, let's just get our lines down so that we can solve it. So 1y plus 2y plus 3y, well, that gives us 6y in total. And then what we need to do is get rid of that times 6 there by dividing 6 both sides. So y equals 180 divided by 6. Well, I know 18 divided by 6 is 3, so I know that's going to be 30. When you're asked to do a plan or a front or side elevation, it's important to remember that the diagram you're going to be drawing must be absolutely square on. So there's not going to be any 3D lines at all. It's just going to be 2D shapes like rectangles. Sometimes you have triangles. Occasionally you might get a circle or a semicircle. So let's have a think. What does plan mean? Plan means view from the top. So what of this shape are we going to see from the top? Well, we're definitely going to see this one. But we'll also see this one as well. Now, we've got to work out what the sizes of them are going to be. Well, the top one's easy. It's just 7 centimeters by 6 centimeters. Now, I'm not going to be able to draw this accurately because I don't have a ruler. But we can almost get it right. We can get it kind of right. And if I label it, that's going to be 7 centimeters, and that should be 6 centimeters. And in your exam, just make sure you actually measure them, because they are said to you in here, and it does say accurately construct. So you want to make sure that it's done 7 centimeters and 6 centimeters. Now, the difficulty is going to be the last bit. Well, we know it's going to be 6 across, because it's the same as this one here. But what's the width going to be? What's this one going to be here? Well, if this one here is 7 and this one here is 9, what's left over? Well, there's 2 centimeters left over. So it's going to be 2 centimeters in width. Ooh. Let's use this one, right. So it's going to be 2 centimeters in width. So 2 centimeters there. And this one obviously is going to be 6 centimeters, the same as the right hand one. Now, this line we have in the middle, this line here, is really important, because that shows that there's a join, that there's something happening there. So you need to construct, you need to show that, especially if there's a change in elevation. Just show it with a line on the diagram. Instead of going straight to percentages for this question, I would first of all get it as a fraction. So it says there's 15 students who are female and 31 altogether. So the fraction is going to be 15 over 31. And to simply convert between fractions and percentages, all you need to do is times by 100. And percent means per 100, so it's always going to be times by 100, and that'll always get you a percentage. So I'm going to get my calculator out. Now I can write that as a fraction, or I could do 15 divided by 31. It gives you the same answer. So 15 over 31 times by 100. And it gives me a fraction, so I'm going to press S to D. And it's 48.3870 blah blah blah. And it says give it to the nearest percent. So that's a 3, so it's not going to move that 8 up to a 9. So it's just 48%. This question doesn't ask you to show the reasons for your working out, however most of the questions will, so let's try and make sure we write down some reasons as we go. The first one I'd go for is this one here, which I'm going to call A. Now I know that A is 180 take away 115, so 180 take away 100 is 80, take away 15 is 65 degrees, and the reason is it's angles on straight line. And if I know A, I know that B as well. So B is going to equal 65 degrees as well, because it's an isosceles triangle. All the bottom angles in an isosceles triangle equal, assuming that the isosceles triangle has the two same sides on the left and right. Obviously if it's rotated it's not the bottom two angles, but it's always going to be these two angles here. Okay, so B is 65. Now I can go straight to X. Because these are parallel lines, X and B create a Z angle, and we need to figure out what the Z angle is called, but we're going to say X is 65, it's the same as B. Now corresponding is the F one, interior or co-interior or allied angles are the C ones, so the one we've got left is alternate. they're alternate angles, they're Z angles. So the answer I can write is 65 degrees. Okay, so this is quite a tricky question because it mixes fractions and ratios together, but we've got to be comfortable with that. So I'd first of all just show the information so that I can get my head around it. So we've got Denver, who as a fraction has 3/19 of the food, and so that leaves how much? Well, we've got a calculator, so we could just do 1 take away 3/19 on the calculator, but we know that that's going to be 16/19. So we can kind of ignore Denver now because we used Denver's amount or fraction of the food to work out Engels and Fido's combined. So that's how much food they'll get, but they're sharing it in the ratio of 5:2. So in total, the amount of parts they have is 5 plus 2, which is 7. So there's 7 parts altogether. Okay, and each part, so one part is going to be worth, well, as a fraction it's 16/19 divided by 7. So 16/19 on the calculator divided by 7, which gives us 16/133. So that's the fraction of each part. Now it says, show what is Fido's share. So we're looking for Fido's share. Now Fido gets 2 lots of that. So looking for Fido, he gets 2 lots of that fraction. So I'm going to times that by 2 on the calculator, which is 32/133. Now it does say show your answer as a percentage rounded to the nearest percent. So to work between fractions and percentages, I just need to times by 100. So what I can do is just times that by 100. I'll do it on the calculator, times by 100, and press S to D if it comes up as a fraction, and it says 24.060 blah blah blah. So to the nearest percent, Fido gets 24%. With two-way tables, we've got to use the totals to work out the missing numbers. So a nice place to start is this box here. If we have a look, we've got a total of 46 people with brown eyes. 23 of them are female. So all you need to do is 46 and take away the 23, and that leaves 23 left over. Now let's have a look at a nice easy one. Right, green eyes, that's a nice easy one there. We've got 48 in total, and 27 females with green eyes. So we want to do 48, take away 27, and that leaves us with 21. Now if we have a look at this one, we have 23 females 23 males with brown eyes, 18 males with blue eyes, and 21 males with green eyes. And we assume that there weren't any others because they're not in the table. So we add those together and that gives us 62 in total. And let's have a look at this one maybe. So we've got 62 females altogether, and we've got 27 of them have green eyes and 23 of them have brown eyes. So we take the 23 and the 27 away from 62, and that leaves us with 12. And we can just check that. We can do 23 plus 12 plus 27, and it equals 62. So we know that's right. With that one sorted, we can get this one. And if there's 18 males with blue eyes and 12 females with blue eyes, that means there's going to be 30 altogether. Now this total is either the total of these ones or the total of these ones, and they should give you the same number. Don't add the blue and the green ones together, so it's only one of them. So 46 plus 30 plus 48 is 124. And let's just check that. 62 plus 62 is also 124. So don't ever write down 248 because that's not correct. So in total there are 124 people whose eye colour were checked. It's important that we're comfortable with converting between ratios and fractions. So having a look at this question, there's red on the first one is 8, and blue is 17. So for every 8 red, there are 17 blue. And it's asked us for the fraction that are blue. So there are 17 blue, so 17 goes at the top of the fraction, but how many are there all together? And so it's tempting to put 17 over 8, but it's all together. The bottom of a fraction is the total, so we need to do 8 plus 17, which is 25. So the fraction is going to be 17 over 25. Okay, the next one asks us to work the other way. So we've got green to black counters, and there's that fraction that are black. So there's a couple of ways of doing this. I could write down them as fractions actually, so why don't I try that? So we know that there are 4/7 that are black, and we know that there are only green and black, so there must be 3/7 that are green, because it has to add up to 7 over 7, which is 1. So looking at that, what we can do to both sides, and I can put little lines down here, I can times both sides by 7 to simplify the fraction, to simplify the ratio even. So when I times the left by 7, I get 3, and when I times the right by 7, I get 4. So the ratio of green to black, and be careful that you have it in the same order, so we need to have green then black, is 3 to 4. And make sure that it's in simplest form, which it is. First thing we need to realise with this question is, which transformation is it? Well, you have to go through the 4 transformations. The first one I think of is, has it rotated? Has it spun around? No, it hasn't. Second one, is there a mirror image of it? No, they both look the same, so it's not been reflected. Has it grown or shrunk at all? No, so it's not an enlargement. So that leaves transformation. Translation. Translation. Now translation just means we've moved it, and that's perfect because we have just moved A to B. Now the second thing to realise is we are starting at shape A and we're going to shape B. Now with translations, to describe them, pick the same point on both shapes. I always pick the top left if it's available. Then what we want to do is work out how far left or right I have to go from A to get in line with B. And I do this with jumps, and the reason we do this with jumps is I never get the wrong answer when I do jumps. So 1, 2, I need to go 2 left. So 2 left. And let's have a think, how much up do we have to go? So 1 jump, 2, 3, 4. So 4 up. Now the way of showing translations is by using vectors, and it sounds fancy, but it's just putting this information here between a bracket. The number at the top of the bracket is how far right it's gone, and the number at the bottom is how far up it's gone. Well, let's do the number at the bottom first. So translation by, there's different words you could use there, and the number at the bottom, well, it's gone 4 up. So it's just a 4 there. Now, here's a problem. This is how far right it's gone, but it's gone 2 left. Well, we just simply put -2 right. Now, be careful. Don't ever put a fraction line between the -2 and 4. It's not a fraction, okay? So don't ever put the fraction line in. Okay, there's more than one way to expand and simplify a single bracket. You're essentially doing the same thing, but some of you might want to draw grids or do it in a different way. I always just use smiles and rainbows, so I just create a smile between the 2 and the 3x, and a rainbow between the 2 and the 6, and I put a little time sign there to remind me to times it. Just put a notch through the bracket. That means we're going to times 2 and 3x, and 2 times 3 is 6. And then we've got the x there, and 2 times 6 we're going to times together to make 12. Now we've still got the 4x, so I still need to write that down. Then I'm going to collect like terms. Now the like terms we have is the 6x and the plus 4x. So 6x plus 4x is 10x. and then there's nothing that we can do with the 12, so we just leave that. So it's 10x plus 12. Okay, the next one, there's a double smiles and rainbows. We've got one here, bit old time sign there, and we've got one here. So we'll do the first one first. So 8 times 6x, so we do 8 times 6, which is 48, and then we've got the x. Then we do 8 times positive 2, which is 16, so plus 16. Now that's nice and easy. However, the next one's slightly different. The number outside the brackets is not a 3, it's a minus 3. So when we do minus 3 times positive 4x, we're going to get a negative, because a minus times a positive is a negative. Then we do 3 times 4, which is 12, and then we've got the x as well. Now the rainbow is minus 3 times minus 5. Two minuses times together is a plus. 3 times 5 is 15. Then we look for like terms, so we've got the 48x and the minus 12x, and we've got the plus 16 and the plus 15. So we want to do 48 take away 12, or 48x take away 12x. So if we take away 2, it's 6. If we take away 10, it's 36x. Then we want to do 16 plus 15. Well, 15 plus 15 is 30, so that's going to be 31. So the answer is going to be 36x plus 31. Now the most common mistakes are for that n bit there, this bit here. Sometimes students will write down negative 15. Okay, so this question's about an adult and 2 children. So we've got David Smith and 2 children. So there's 1 adult and 2 children. But the prices shown are not quite right, because there's a discount. There's a 5th off adult price and 30% off the child price. So let's work out the adult price first. So a 5th off. Well, first of all, let's work out a 5th of £70. So to work out a 5th, you can just divide 70 by 5. Now I know that 10 fives are 50 and 4 fives are 20, so that's going to be 14. So that's going to be £14 he gets off. So therefore the price will be the £70 take away the £14. So 70 take away 10 is 60, take away 4 is 56. So he's going to pay £56 himself. Let's do the child price. Okay, so it's 30% off the child price. So we want to do 30% of £37. Okay, let's do the equals down here to give us some room. Well, I know that 10% is going to be £3.70, and then I need to times that by 3. Okay, so I could just times it by 3. Let's have a think. I could do 370. I could do it in pence, and then just times that by 3. So 370, and then I can just do times 3. So I can do a little grid. And if this is on the calculator, then obviously you just type it into the calculator. And obviously that's going to be 0, so we don't need that one. So it's 900. That's 21 with a 0. So 900 plus 21, 210 even. 0, 1, and then 11. So that's going to be £11.10. And so we want to work out the price. So it's going to be £37, take away £11.10. So if you take away 10 it's 27, take away 1 is 26, take away 10 is £25.90. Now that's for 1 child, so that's 1 child. So if I want 2 children, I want to do £25.90 times 2. Now I know 25 times 2 is 50, 90 times 2 is £1.80, so that's going to be £51.80. Okay, I'll move down a bit. And let's do the total. So the total is going to be the adult price, which is this one here, plus the 2 children price, which is that one there. So I want to do 56 plus £51.80. And again, if you've got a calculator, you can just type it in, but let's do the column method. £1.80, and then people like putting the zeros in. So that's going to be 0, 8, 7, 10. So that's going to be £107.80. So it's £107.80. Finished. Okay, so this question is a little bit more complicated than it first seems. So we've got Adrian, Ben, and Charlie, and they share some sweets in the ratio of 6 to 3 to 8. And it says that Charlie got 12 more sweets than Adrian. Well, first of all, let's have a look and see how many more parts that Charlie... Ooh. Always cross my L's for some reason. Charlie got more than Adrian. Okay, so he got 8 take away 6 is 2. So he got 2 more parts. And so let's have a look and see what 1 part is worth. So those 2 parts equates to 12 more sweets. So we do 12 divided by 2, 6. So each part is worth 6 sweets. And it says work out the total amount of sweets. So we need to work out how many parts there are in total. So we do 6 plus 3 plus 8. Now I know 6 plus 8 is 14, plus 3 is 17. So we've got 17 parts in total. Each of them is worth 6 sweets. So to work out the amount of sweets, we do 17 times 6. Now we could do 7 times 6, which is 42, 10 times 6, which is 60. So add the 2 together, it's 102. So there are 102 sweets altogether. So you'll need a calculator for this question. The different calculators do things slightly different, but by far the most common calculator, and if you haven't got one, I would recommend them, are the Casio calculators. Mine has a shiny solar panel on the top, but you don't need that. The average battery life lasts way longer than you'll ever need the calculator. So the first button I would press, and there's different ways of doing this question, is the button to get the fraction, which on the Casios looks like this. And that will make a fraction appear on your calculator. Now, some of the older ones, the fraction looks a bit weird. It involves like a symbol like this. And actually on the new ones it can, but you need to change the settings if it does that. It should open up, it should look something like this, like a box and then another box, and there should be a cursor blinking in this box. Okay, so we want to fill in this top box first, since it's already flashing. So 76.8 plus 81.9. Okay, and so to shift downwards on the Casio calculators, there's a sort of cursor, like a cursor stick, a direction button thing. It's the big blue button beneath the screen on most of the calculators, and you just push the down to go to the denominator of the fraction. And then we need to fill in this bit here, so 0.19, and then to get the squared button, it's on like that. So you just press that, and it looks exactly as it does in the question on the screen, so you know you've got it right. So you press the equals, and my one comes up with 4396.121884. Now, it might be tempting to try and round that, but it says it wants all the figures, so just put them all in. Now, if your calculator is set to a mode which is going to show even more numbers, then normally 6 6 digits after the decimal point is more than enough. They won't require you to go to 100 or 200 decimal places. On this question, that's actually an exact amount. Okay, so write down correct to 2 significant figures. Now, to do 2 significant figures, we start counting at the start of the number. So I'm going to do a red line where you need to start counting. And you just count 1, 2 numbers. So the blue line is where I've stopped counting. Now, all of these numbers here are going to be reset to 0. They're going to go away. Well, not quite. Let's come to that later. Now, this number here, the 9, is what we call a decider number. Now, that number is going to go. That 9 is gone. Okay? But before it goes, we need to see whether that is 5 or more or 4 or less. If it's 5 or more, it pushes that 3 up to a 4. So the answer will be 4, 4, and then you'd think, oh, okay, that's it, rounded, and you'd write that in your answer column. But when I said they disappear, they don't quite disappear. All the numbers above the green line I've just drawn reset to 0. They turn to 0. Now, if you think about it, if I don't know what would have a decimal place, but if you have a number 4,396.121884 written down, and someone says, "Can you tell me roughly how much that is?" Then if you say the answer of 44, that's not roughly 44. It's nowhere near 44. So the 9 and the 6 will turn to 0. And actually the other numbers do too. But these numbers here are not changing the number at all. These 2 zeros here will make that 4,400 instead of just 44. The other numbers after decimal point, we might as well get rid of them. So the answer is 4,400, okay, because we don't need to show these numbers. Now, the reason students make this mistake is they're so used to decimal places. Now, decimal places, you always remove them because they're always after the decimal point. But with significant figures, they need to turn to zeros. So this question looks quite complicated at first, but actually there are 2 very simple-ish ways of doing it. We've got 2 decagons, and so that means they are 10-sided. And you can just count the sides if you want, but if it says it's a decagon, I trust it, it's a decagon. Now what we can do is we could work out the interior angles of the decagons. Well, they'll be the same, so I can just work out 1 and then double it, and then take that away from 360 to work out A. And that's absolutely fine, that'll get you the right answer. A quicker way maybe, and especially on the non-calculator paper, but it works on both papers, is to draw a line up here and realise that you've got 2 exterior angles there. And the beauty of exterior angles for polygons is they always add up to 360. So to work out the exterior angle, always write down what you're working out. All you need to do is 360 divided by the number of sides the regular polygon has, and they have to be regular, otherwise you can't just divide them because we're assuming they're the same. So that's 36. So if that one's 36 degrees there, and that one's 36 degrees there, then all you need to do is 36 times 2. Well, 6 times 2 is 12, 30 times 2 is 6, so that's going to be 72. So let's show the examiner that. 36 times 2 equals 72 degrees. So this question says there's a tennis tournament being played where each player plays each other once. And there's multiple ways of doing this. One of the ways is listing out all the different combinations. But this question only asks for how many tennis matches are being played. So you don't need to list them out, and sometimes you will need to list them out. This one you don't. So let's start off with a lyre. A lyre has 4 people that they're going to play against. William, Paul, Samantha and Christine. William, well, we've already counted a lyre's match with William, so William only has 3 left that he can play. Then Paul we've already counted his match with the other two, so he's only going to play Samantha and Christine, other than his matches we've already counted. Samantha's only got Christine left to play after we counted all the other matches. And Christine's matches have already been counted so far. So, we've got the 4 matches Elia's going to play, 3 matches that William's going to play, not counting the one we've already counted from Elia, plus the 2 Paul's going to play, plus the other one that Samantha's going to play. So 4 plus 3 is 7, plus 2 is 9, plus 1 is 10. So in total there are 10 different matches going to be played. This is quite an unusual question because it's asking us to find the mean from a bar line graph. Now, what I would do is I'd first of all just start drawing a table for this information because I'm used to finding the mean from a table, so that's what I'm going to do. And so we've got pets, we've got the frequency, and we'll worry about the last column in a second. So 0 pets, the frequency is 6, 1 pet, the frequency is 10, 2 pets, the frequency is 6, 3 pets, the frequency is 6, and 4 pets, the frequency is 1. Now to find the mean you add an fx column, and I always call this, whatever is here, x, and I always call the frequency f. So it's the fx column, and you just times them together. So it's just a way of finding out those 6 that were 0, well how many is that in total? Well that's going to be 0. Those 10 that had 1 pet, how many pets is that in total? 10. Those 6 people who had 2 pets, well how many pets are there in total? Well 2 times 6, which is 12. There were 6 people with 3 pets, so that's 18 pets altogether. And there was 1 person with 4 pets. So that's 4 altogether. Then what you want to do is you want to add up the fx column, and we do that with a little e symbol, just means sum of. So I'm going to do that on the calculator now. So 0 plus 10 plus 12 plus 18 plus 4, which is 44. You also want to add up the frequency column, so sum of frequency. So it sometimes tells you in the question how many there are, so just double check that. So I'm going to add those together. So that's 29. Now, the mean is all of this stuff added together over how many there are. So you kind of want to swap these over. Okay, so it's 44 over, which means divide, 29. So 44 divided by 29. And it comes up with a fraction on the calculator, so just press S to D, and that equals 1.5172 blah blah blah. It asks for 2 decimal places, so to 2 decimal places that is 1.52 because that 7 moves that 1 up. So inequalities, what are they? They just mean instead of x equaling something, x is greater than or smaller than something. So x can normally have lots of different values. Now, this statement here is really important. Integer just means a whole number. So we know that x can't be a half, because that's not a whole number. Now, x says here x is greater than -7, and is less than or equal to 3. So when it asks you to write down all the numbers that that's true for, well, let's have a think. Well, if it's if it's greater than -7, then it can't be -7. It can't be equal to it. So it's going to be -6, -5, -4, -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Now let's have a look at the other one. It says that x can be less than or equal to 3. So that line there, if you look at it, that little line there, so if I do it a little bit bigger, the line that I've just drawn there says it can be 3. so we must include 3 in our answer, and that's how you get full marks. Now you probably will get 1 mark if you forget to put the 3 down, or you put the -7 accidentally. Right, the next one I'm just going to write out a little bit bigger. Now the way we do this question is the same way as solving just a normal equation with an equals, but don't ever put an equals. There was an exam a few years ago that if you wrote an equals in it, they would give you 0 marks. So the first step is to expand the brackets. So I do smiles and rainbows, but if you've got another method, that's fine. I'll put a little line there to remind me to times it. So 5 times 3x is 15x. And 5 times -5 is -25. Now you could have divided both sides by 5 and that would have been fine. Next step is to get rid of this -25. And you must start with that. You can't get rid of the 15 first. So we're going to add 25 to both sides to get rid of that -25. So we're left with 15x on this side. And 35 plus 25 will be, well, 5 plus 35 is 40, 40 plus 20 is 60. Now to get rid of this times 15, we need to divide both sides by 15. So that will get rid of the 15 there. And how many 15s in 60? Well, 2 times 15 is 30, so it would be 4. Now be really careful not to accidentally put any equal signs in your answer, and especially this bit here. So it's x is greater than 4. So there's a lot of places to start with this question. Whenever I'm given a shape in a question like this, I always ask myself, well, do I need to work out the perimeter of it or the area? And sometimes you're going to have to figure out something else, but it's mainly going to be those two things. Well, this is all about covering the floor, so I'm imagining I'll need to work out the area. So I'm going to start off working out the area. Now to do that, I've got to work out what shape it is. Well, it's a trapezium because there's 2 parallel sides and it's 4-sided. So if you've got a pair of parallel sides and it's 4-sided, it's a trapezium. So to work out the area, the formula is half a plus b h. Now you need to work out what h and a and b are. A and b are always the ones on the parallel sides. So it's those two. It doesn't matter which way round you call them. H is always the one that connects the two at right angles. So half 2.5 plus 1.5 times 11.5. So I can get my calculator out and I can do 0.5 times brackets 2.5 plus 1.5 close brackets times 11.5. And that gives me the answer of 23. So the area of this is 23 meters squared. Okay, so I've managed to work that out. Let's have a look. So tiles are sold in packs, 25% off marked price, and they're marked at £12. So next thing we can work out is how much they actually cost. And it doesn't matter if you do this in a different order as long as you do each step and label it well. So cost of pack. Okay, so we've got £12 and we need to reduce it by 25%. Okay, so first of all I need to work out 25% of £12. So the way I can do that is just find a quarter of 12, so divide it by 4, so that's going to be £3. So the cost is going to be £12, take away my £3 discount, which is going to be £9. So the cost of the pack is £9. Okay, so it feels like we're getting somewhere. Now, if each one costs £9, but each one covers 2 meters squared, okay, so we know we've got 23 meters squared to cover. So what I can do is I can work out how many packs I need. So packs needed. So I've got 23 meters squared to cover. and each pack covers 2. So I'll do 23 divided by 2. Now that gives me the answer of 11.5. So I need 11.5 packs. Well, unfortunately, shops don't like you taking half a pack. Trust me, I've tried. They really don't like it. So you must always round this up. Otherwise, you won't have enough. If you round it down, say if it came out as 11.4, if you rounded that down, you won't have enough. So there'll be a patch of untiled floor in your kitchen. That's not good. So the answer is going to be 12. So I need 12 packs. So total price. So I need 12 packs, and each of them costs £9. So 12 times 9 is £108. So it's going to cost £108. Now, the last bit of the question, she says she's got £100 to spend. How much extra? So it wants it in pence as well. My goodness. So we need to do extra. And all I'm doing here is doing 108, take away 100, which equals £8, which is 800 pence. So when you have a right angle triangle and you're given 2 of the lengths and you're asked to find a third length, which I'm going to call x, then it's going to be Pythagoras. Be careful, because if there's an angle involved, either you're asked to find an angle or you're just given an angle on the side, then you'll be using trigonometry. So when we use Pythagoras, there are 2 methods that I know of to work it out. There's the algebraic method, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared, and that's absolutely fine to use. I'm not going to use that method because if you're happy using that method, go on, use it, not a problem. The only thing to remember about that method is that c must be the hypotenuse. Okay, now I'm going to do a method that doesn't involve algebra at all for people who are not very happy with the a squared plus b squared equals c squared method. So my method comes with 3 steps. Step 1 is just square every number that you have and put the biggest one first. Okay, so I'm going to do 7.1 squared and I'm going to do 4.6 squared. So on my calculator, 7.1 squared, and that equals 50.41, and 4.6 squared equals 21.16. So step 1's done, I've squared them all. Step 2 is the only choice you have to make. You either have to add or subtract. Okay, now this is where we talk about the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is the length that's opposite the right angle. So go to the right angle, go across from it, and that is the hypotenuse. So 7.1 is the hypotenuse. Now what's special about the hypotenuse and why it has a special name is it must be the longest side. So in step 2, have a think, well, if we add them, we'll get a bigger number. Well, the hypotenuse must be the biggest side. So when you're finding another side, not the hypotenuse, you will subtract. But if I was finding the hypotenuse, so I wanted a bigger number than the other 2, then I would add. So I'm going to do 50.41 minus 21.16, and that's why in step 1 we did the biggest one first, because otherwise you'll get a negative number. So 50.41 take away 21.16, and that equals 29.25. Okay, and step 3 is a nice easy step, it's just root it. So with this one, I'm just going to press square root answer, and then I have, so I'm going to write that down, square root 29.25, and so that equals 5.4083, blah blah blah. It says it wants its 2 decimal places, so I'm going to write 5.41 because that 8 moves that 0 up by 1. Now, last step is just check it makes sense. Well, this being 5.41 means that the 7.1 is still the longest side, so we know we've probably got it right. I hope you found that useful. As I said at the start of the video, go to the website onmaths.com and you can try this paper online completely for free. There's also other resources on there. Obviously ignore the few topics that are a part of the new syllabus, which is Venn diagrams and things like that. But there should be a wealth of topic busters that will help you with your revision. So the best of luck, and yeah, thank you very much. If you've enjoyed this video, please click like. If you really enjoyed the video, please click subscribe. Thank you very much.